And just so people know, we have over $16 billion in the bank account right now. 16 billion just with the state reserves. And then we have an additional 2 billion in the Georgia lottery.
Mm.
So we have nearly 20 billion sitting in bank accounts while 1 in 5 children live in poverty in this state. While 60% of children, by the time they reach third grade in this state, can't read on grade level.
Greetings, my posse. Welcome to the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney. I'm Rodney J. Littles.
I'm Rodney Butler. Hey,
Brother
Rodney,
Butler,
yeah, go ahead, man. I know you
good to
want to talk
see
about
you,
the weather.
man.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Do
How
what you
was
do,
your
Rodney.
week?
Talk about the weather, man. My week has been good.
Oh,
I
oh
know the
man.
reason I'm telling you to talk about the weather because I know you being from the Northeast. I
Yes,
know
sir.
that you were kind of tired of this northeastern weather we're having down here,
Yes,
and
sir, my
so I know
brother.
you want to talk about that for a second. And so yeah, it warmed up a little bit, man.
Yes, sir. We brought a little bit of heat from Mexico, up from the Gulf, man. The heated up a little bit because it's been cold here. It's been cold in Washington, bro, and we are freezing out our democracy.
We are freezing out our democracy. But you know what? I think that you got somebody coming on right here in a
Yeah, you
second
got
that's gonna
heated up.
heat it up a little bit. So Rodney, do your thing, man. Do your thing.
Oh man, by my posse, let's welcome Bobby X Fryer from the Black Man's Roundtable with the Find Out phase.
Hey, brothers, how y'all doing?
Good.
Hello to everyone
Hey
listening
man.
tonight. There's several things. There's been so much that's been going on almost every day. They call it flooding the zone, and it's definitely flooding the zone. But there's been some pushback and some resistance. I want to briefly go over tonight just to share a few things about what's going on. So there's a collective amount of things that I wrote down, and we'll just narrow in on about three things before I go. So. As most of you know, last night, Joanne Reed had her final show on MSNBC, The Readout. My personal opinion is that Miss Reed is going to be just fine. She has an audience she's going to carry with her on a bigger platform, or on a platform that will enrich her. So Sister Reed, I know, will land on her feet, although the circumstances behind her firing are certainly suspect. And I have to go back to something that Elon Musk was trying to do, which was buy out MSNBC. And he specifically mentioned her show and getting rid of her. So there's a lot of shadiness, I think, behind the scenes about that. But Joy Reid is a force to be reckoned with. She won't be stopped. And she's got a lot of people that are supporting her that are in that industry that are going to make sure her voice will be heard going forward. I'm not concerned about Miss Reed landing on her feet. There's been some angry town halls, including here in Georgia and Roswell. A lot of angry town halls upset about the current administration and things that are going on in Republican areas.
Oh,
That's interesting to me.
yeah.
So it's already starting. It hasn't even been, 31 days, 32 days, whatever it's been. It's already a lot of unhappy folks. And that's FAFO. So, if you voted for him, you're getting exactly what you deserve. Don't complain now, because these are all the things that people like this show and others were trying to tell y'all was going to happen going forward.
You took the letters right out of my mouth.
Yes, yes.
That's what this segment is about. Go ahead, Bobby.
That's right. There's been some pushback on some things that are being proposed. I know this Friday, the 28th, people are boycotting certain stores and buying and purchasing things. That has been spread out. I'm definitely with it. My only issue, if you want to call it an issue, is that it should be prolonged. It should be more than one day. So if we're going to do this, we need to do this where it is sustainable. We can figure out how else and how better to spend our dollars amongst ourselves, and to let people know financially, especially I believe Black people spend up to, I think, 2 trillion, if my math is correct, into
Sounds
the
about
economy.
right.
Yeah, about $2 trillion. So where we spend our money does matter. But I just think it needs to be sustained. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted for a year. Just keep that in mind. And folks made sure that they still got to work on time. They just figured out another alternative way to get it done and to make them see how important their dollars were in the community. So those are some things. Even a sick out, I know, has been proposed. People just taking a day off from work and just saying I'm sick, in regards to protesting. So that's something else that's been going on. We've seen nuclear scientists fired, engineers fired. We've seen questionable foreign policy decisions being made. Now we're suddenly siding with our adversaries on whether or not the UN agrees that Russia was the agitator in invading Ukraine. Suddenly now we're against the UN saying that. All these things are very suspicious that everybody should think and realize for yourselves what the ultimate goal is for Vladimir Putin in restoring Russia to what he thinks they should be. And when you see these type of things happening, it's very, very questionable as to what's going on. These things are right out in the open. It's not nothing that should be looked at as some type of conspiracy theory. Our economy is is starting to show signs of breaking. Okay, everybody that was talking about, oh, the economy is why they voted the way they voted. But you see now, let me just ask you, if you see people that are hesitant to get on planes, when you see the effect of what tariffs will do, when you see federal workers being laid off, which is going to contribute to the unemployment rate, when you see the price of eggs that people had mentioned before about some of their reasoning for why they were voting the way they were voting, and all these other different things happening in the economy, it's going to have an effect ultimately on the stock market and other things. So we're inviting all these dangers into our country, and this was all preventable. So, and not to mention, by the way, we have a measles outbreak that is occurring in Texas. And I think Kansas has a similar outbreak as well. So, and if you trust the person that fumbled the last pandemic to be able to handle it this time around, good luck with that way of thinking. It's putting us all in danger with the things that he's doing. So I'll close with this. I know I've said a lot. I'll close with this. We've had 3 federal judges block some of the executive orders that were issued by Trump when he took office. So the interesting thing about it is that all 3 of these judges were appointed under the Biden administration. So we've seen the blocking of the freezing of federal grants and loans. Mm-hmm. We've seen a blockage of USAID and the State Department fundings. They have to pay those contractors that were already doing what they were supposed to do, as well as the nonprofits up to that point. So that has been frozen as well by one of the federal judges, and the executive order suspending refugee admissions. That's another thing that has been blocked by, again, a federal judge. So we're seeing some pushback by those that can, and by that I mean those that are judges and the judiciary to block some of these things, because executive orders can be challenged in court. That's the thing about that most people don't understand. Executive orders are not they're not laws passed by Congress. Right. So, people just have to do a basic civics lesson to understand that they can be challenged. And you didn't have to think very far, because they challenged the Biden administration for loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness.
I remember.
Yeah. So,
and that was within his authority to do so.
Within his authority to do so. So these things can be challenged, but it's going to be interesting going forward how people resist and push back, because this is not a time to be sitting on your hands and just waiting. There are things that are going to happen that are going to force people to react. So That's pretty much it. I know I've said a lot in a short period of time, but these are all things that are on the table for people to think about.
Thank you.
I just want to reply to one part of it, Bobby, and you talked about, the pandemic, and it just reminds me of, when it was said that, the revolution won't be televised, right? And
Gil Scott
Heron. And now we're talking about the revolution will be televised, right? And so, look, if you think about it, the reason I think about that with all the outbreaks and the measles and everything else that's going on is because the reason I think about the revolution won't be televised is that now he has in place an NIH director, okay, that's over every single thing about the health in America, And I just got a feeling that he just might simply say, don't report anything.
Mm,
So guess what? So that's
mm.
what I say when I say it makes me think about the revolution won't be televised, because if you're waiting to hear it on the news, on news networks, that people are dropping like flies because of some outbreak, like when we had COVID, it might be a little different this time because of the minions and the people that he has in place. So maybe the revolution won't be televised. That's all I got on what you said, Rodney.
That,
You got anything?
that's the introduction of state
Nah,
media.
that's great, my brother. Appreciate the input, man. We finding out.
That's it. We are finding out.
Yep.
F the
As
round,
simple as
F the
that.
round on November the 5th, and we're
Yep.
finding out today. Appreciate it,
Yep.
Rodney.
Thank you, brothers. I hope
Have a
y'all
good
enjoy
one.
your evening.
Thank you, sir.
You too, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Always.
Great. Wow, we have a outstanding guest. That was a great intro to get the audience up and tuned up for our next guest. It's a pleasure to have State Senator from Senate District 35, Jason Esteves. He was sworn in on January 9th, 2023, and he has served on Senate committees including Children and Families, Agriculture and Consumer Affairs, Finance, State and Local Government Operations, and Ethics. As Vice Chairman of Finance and a member of the Senate Democratic Caucus Executive Team, he is committed to finding smart ways to keep investing in Georgia communities. Great. Oh, wait a minute. He's an entrepreneur and a small business owner. He has firsthand experience with the challenges of rising costs and the need for livable wages. In the Georgia state capitol, Jason uses his expertise as a litigation attorney, former corporate executive, and entrepreneur to advocate for policies that help Georgia businesses grow. Prior to that, he was the at-large representative and board chair of the Atlanta Public School Board of Education. During that time, he redirected funding to classrooms instead of administration and provided over $100 million in staff pay increases and stipends. Welcome, Senator Esteves.
My brothers, how are y'all doing?
Great,
Great.
sir. Great to have you on.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Black Man's Roundtable. This is the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney, and we're going to get to it. Jason, give us a little bit of background on where you come from, what kind of education do you have, and what got you interested in law?
Yeah, so I am from Columbus, Georgia. So I am from the South Side, raised to two parents. One was an Army veteran, retired after 20 years in the service. And then my mom, who is very influential in my life. When I think about why I'm here, it's in many ways because of her, not only biologically, but also because of how much she poured into me and it helped shape my life. Uh, I grew up in Columbus, watching both of my parents work 2 to 3 jobs at a time.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in a working class neighborhood down in the south side of Columbus. And I was fortunate in high school to go to Columbus High School, which was a magnet program.
Okay.
And that is what really highlighted for me the disparity that existed in our public education system. And after that, I went to the University of Miami. So it's all about the U.
Yes, sir.
And, uh, and had too much fun in Miami. Had
I
too much.
know. I know.
But I will tell you, Rodney, that based on what my mom had instilled in me, I knew that I wanted to serve my community.
Okay.
I just didn't really have a clear vision of how. I
Okay.
initially thought coming in that I wanted to be a doctor and serve my community that way. I quickly learned that biology and chemistry were not my strengths.
I
and
feel
not
you.
and not only that, I didn't have the focus for it either. I was
Right. Right.
distracted down in Miami. And towards the end of my college career, really had to figure out what path I wanted to take.
Okay.
So decided that I would go teach for a couple years, and I went to Houston, Texas, to teach middle school social studies.
Okay.
And that experience changed my life because I was, as a 22-year-old, standing in front of the classroom, 30 students a class. I had 150 kids total. And I saw kids who reminded me of me, reminded me of y'all. They were just as smart, just as willing to work hard, had the same kinds of dreams, but because of where they lived, they didn't have the same opportunities.
Mm,
And I found that to be inherently wrong. That motivated me to go to law school, and
okay.
it's the reason why I'm in public policy.
Got it. Got it. Wow. Well, that's an interesting story. So I know that you were in the business community. How did you get intertwined in politics?
Yeah, so for me, that teaching experience is what ultimately got me into politics.
Okay.
That inequity, that unfairness in the system that I was seeing, I wanted to change, and I
Okay.
knew that because of the systemic issues that we have in this country, that we have in this state, that the best way to do it was policy making. I'm also a, a kid that comes from two working parents,
Mm,
and I understood the value of money. I also understood how uh, I did not want to grow up broke, and that I needed to figure out how to make money. And
amen.
during law school, uh, was fortunate enough to be focused in law school and do well. I
Okay.
graduated with honors,
All right.
and that exposed me to a bunch of opportunities, including uh, working in the business community and being in house counsel and working at a law firm. So I did that, but I will tell you that I also felt that guilt of working in corporate America, while at the same time wanting to do more to impact my community, because that was the original purpose of me going to law school in the first place.
Gotcha.
So throughout my career, I've kind of had these. I have my professional career, which is more business oriented, and then I have my political career, which is giving back to my community.
Public service.
Public service.
All right. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the Gold Dome. And you now in a new district that was created. What was that? A reapportionment?
That was because of reapportionment and gerrymandering.
Ah, talk to me about the German and how you wound up. Because full disclosure, he's now my state senator.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And and I was not your state senator just like
No, that's right.
we have in Georgia what they have in many other parts of the country, what they call political gerrymandering, and that's where the party in power draws district maps to help preserve their power. So in this state, Republicans control the state, and they draw maps intentionally to keep themselves in the majority in the legislature. And what happened was about 3 or 4 years ago, Republicans drew maps in a way that diluted Black power. It diluted the influence of Black voters across Metro Atlanta, particularly on the south side of Metro Atlanta. So we sued, and when I say we, I mean the Democratic Party and other organizations sued to have those maps redrawn. The judge came out and said, yes, these maps dilute the Black vote, and because of that, the legislature has to draw new districts that give Black people more power. Now, Democrats thought that was going to be a success and that we were going to get new
Oh,
Democratic
tell him
districts.
how they dirted us. Yeah, tell him. Oh,
And
man.
now, what the Republicans did is they said, okay, well, the court order says we need to draw more Black districts. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So they looked for the two, in the Senate, for example, they looked for the two districts that Democrats had that were white districts, majority white districts. My district was one of them, and Elena Parent on the east side was the other. So they drew those, they had those white districts that represented mostly North Atlanta. And what they did was they essentially flipped them down south. So what I used to represent Buckhead and East Cobb. And my house in Northwest Atlanta off of Bolton was the furthest south it went. And it included some of Grove Park in Atlanta. So what they did is they, instead of my house being on the south side of the district, my house is now on the north side of the district. So I go all the way down to the city of South Fulton and also represent Smyrna and Vining. So it's all about maintaining power. It's one of those things that we have to end here in Georgia because it does dilute the vote of Black people, but it also makes the politics more extreme because if you're in a safe Democratic district where the district's going to vote Democrat every time, the candidates that run for it will start to get more extreme, more on the left of Democrats. And the same thing goes for the districts that are more Republican.
Right.
You get some of these crazies that we see in Washington. They run in the legislative races. So our politics, instead of finding ways to work together, you start to see things go separate apart.
Wow. Were there incumbents involved in these new districts that they drew?
There were some incumbents that lost their seats, and they lost their seats because they were paired against other incumbents.
Yep.
So one had to decide to drop, or in a couple cases, both incumbents ran against each other, and one came out a victor. In my case, fortunately, there were no
No
incumbents,
opponents, right?
and
Right.
I was fortunate now to serve another term. Trying to make you proud, Rodney.
You're doing a good job so far, my brother. So quickly, were all of these candidates that wound up put in the same district, were they all black?
No, they
Oh,
were not.
explain that.
In Gwinnett County,
Hmm.
uh, there is a white man and an Asian man. In Cobb County, there is a white woman and a white man. In Southeast Atlanta, there is a Latina and a white woman.
Okay.
So it was
Gotcha.
it was paired that way.
Gotcha.
Uh,
I understand. I understand.
yeah.
So basically, party politics is racialized now under the Gold Dome.
One, they've done that intentionally.
Yep.
Okay.
They want Democrats to look like the party of black people.
Gotcha.
And they want to do that because uh, they want to convince white people that the only party that looks out for their interests is the Republican Party.
Wow.
Now, we know that that's not true.
Right.
And we also know that black people are not a monolith.
That's
There,
correct.
I have many friends who vote Republican, who voted for Trump for various reasons. They are, as Bobby said, they are finding out now.
Right.
Uh, but this kind of gerrymandering uh, really encourages us to look at groups of people as monoliths, and it's not.
Right.
What we should be doing is valuing our diversity. Just like there's
Right.
diversity in the black community, there's diversity in the Latino community, there's diversity in the white community.
Right. Gotcha. 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 So let's get to the issues under the of the day. I know that you have some specific areas that you're trying to have an impact on. So tell us what your major initiatives are in terms of supporting or getting legislation passed and or opposing legislation that shouldn't pass.
Yeah, so there's a lot of legislation that should not pass. And in
Okay.
fact, we've had 22 legislative days down at the Capitol. And I think out of the 22, one legislative day was actually spent doing substantive work
Mm,
that could potentially impact the wallets of Georgians across the state. The
okay.
rest of the days have been spent on bills that are primarily just messaging bills. These are bills that will have very little impact on whether you bring more money home or keep more money in your pockets. And these are bills that they can use for campaigns in the future and to suck up to Donald Trump. And that's the
Okay.
unfortunate part of being down at the Gold Dome.
Okay.
So what I've been trying to do is really focus my colleagues' attention, focus our attention on the issues that matter. And those are issues around education, around healthcare, around housing, and around supporting our small businesses and our entrepreneurs. And that's because I think people, what they want is they want to be able to provide food on their table, a roof over their heads, and they want their children to have better opportunities than they had. So what I've focused my time on is making sure that we are advocating for those types of policies, advocating for those types of issues, so that we can alleviate the cost that Georgians are having to endure, especially now. I don't know if you've seen the price of eggs. I own a breakfast restaurant,
You do.
yeah, and the price of
In
eggs have gone dramatically up just in the last month.
Wow.
So I
Right.
don't know if we call that Trumpflation or Trumponomics or what, but
Right. Right.
the situation is getting very real out there for people,
Mm-hmm.
and what we should be doing is making sure that we pass policies, for example, pass laws that would prevent Wall Street and these foreign corporations from buying up our homes,
Mm-hmm.
driving up the mortgage rates,
Mm-hmm.
driving up rent, making it more expensive for someone to buy their first home. We also need to expand Medicaid. That's a big deal because it impacts the Black community. Black men, and especially, are at risk for not having health insurance, and expanding Medicaid would significantly help that.
Right.
I'm also concerned about senior care.
Okay.
I'm a caregiver of a mom with Alzheimer's.
Oh,
I've cared for my mom while I've had young children,
got you.
and I know how hard that has been to navigate. And
Right.
the more I talk to people, the more they say that our senior care system is broken,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
and we need to make sure that we are building a system here in Georgia where if you grow old, and I know the two Rodneys on here, y'all don't grow old. For everyone else that grows old, you want to do that with dignity,
Right.
with loved ones around you, with people who care about you,
Right.
and you shouldn't have to go broke
Amen.
to receive care in this state as a senior. And we have way too many seniors who go broke.
Mm.
We have the third highest poverty rate for seniors in the country. Yet we have a system, a senior care system that is not doing its job. So one of the bills that I propose is
Mm-hmm.
to create a state agency that would focus on the coordination of care for seniors,
I
so
love it.
that if you have a loved one, or if you're a senior yourself, you have a one-stop shop that you can go to get the services that you need. And then I'll end it
Excellent.
on this. I also, or actually two things really quickly.
Oh
Education,
no, your
former
time,
public
my
school,
brother.
former public
Okay.
school teacher. Um, we have to fund our education system beyond. Right now, we fund it. The formula is called quality basic education. Our students don't deserve a basic education. They deserve an excellent education. And
Right.
the funding formula, the way we fund our schools, was first created in 1985 and has
Okay.
barely changed.
Right.
And in 40 years, the world has changed dramatically. So we need to make sure that we update that formula. And then we also need to make childcare more affordable.
Mm.
So I've introduced a bill to increase the childcare tax credit, so that parents get up to $1,000 and help them pay for daycare. I have
Right.
two relatively young kids, 9 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too far removed from having to pay for daycare. It is incredibly expensive. So we
Right.
should be doing everything we can to alleviate that pressure. And then the last thing I will say is supporting our small businesses and entrepreneurs. In the Black community, we are entrepreneurial. We have that spirit. And if we want to build wealth in the community, if we want to keep money in our community, if we want to hire local, then we need to be doing what we can as a state to support small businesses. And you often see the governor talk about the number one state to do business, but that is for big business. If
Right.
you're a Rivian and you're telling the governor that you're going to bring 5,000 jobs to the state, he's going to be like, $1 billion in tax credits. Here, check, right? What if we spent that billion on tax credits and low interest loans to help provide capital for small business owners? How many more jobs will we create? And then not only that, we would create those jobs and then make sure that the money that's made stays in the community, because you know that we're going to hire local. You know the money is going to stay in the community because we live in the communities. So we have to really be smarter about how we spend our money. And this is the type of platform that I think that Democrats should have generally, talking about these kitchen table issues, talking
That's
about
right.
how we keep money in your pocket, and not only that, how we can grow the money that we have in our communities.
Good point. Good point. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I know we have a huge surplus. Do you see the possibility of, instead of giving a small check back to the whole state, some of that money could be targeted to some of the initiatives that you're talking about?
That's right. So I want to make sure that people understand when you say we have a huge surplus, what the governor has been doing for about 5 or 6 years is he has been underestimating how much money the state would make, and they've been doing it on purpose. So they'll underestimate how much the state is going to make. So if this year we were projecting, he would say we're going to project that the state's going to make $37 billion in revenue. And then at the end of the year, we have 40 billion. And he's like, oh, we did better than expected. And it's like, no, we didn't do better than expected. We did exactly how we were supposed to do, but you underestimated how much money we would get. The problem with that is that he has been demanding that the agencies that support the people, that provide people services, that those budgets remain flat or that they be cut. And to me, that's the equivalent of me telling my wife when we go budget at the beginning of the year, look, baby, we will only make about $60,000 this year. So fixing the air conditioner in the car, we can't do that this year. Getting the kids braces, nope. Getting that checkup, can't do that either. And then at the end of the year, I come back and I say, surprise, we made $85,000 this year. I don't know about y'all, but my wife would not be happy with that.
Right.
That's right.
Because she would be like, look, we had all these issues that we should have been addressing that we're not addressing. And that's no different than what we see here in Georgia. The governor has repeatedly underestimated how much money we're going to make. And as a result, he's been holding on the money that can be used to ensure that people get to work, that we have the healthcare system that is strong, that we have an education system that is preparing kids for their future, that we have affordable housing. There's so much money. And just so people know, we have over $16 billion in the bank account right now. 16 billion just with the state reserves. And then we have an additional 2 billion in the Georgia lottery. So we have nearly $20 billion sitting in bank accounts while 1 in 5 children live in poverty in this state. While 60% of children, by the time they reach 3rd grade in this state, can't read on grade level. Where, like I said, we have 1 in 9 seniors living in poverty. Where you have people who don't have a good transportation system accessible to them. Where we have rural hospitals closing. Where Black women can't have babies without the worry and the risk of dying, because we have one of the highest Black mortality, maternal mortality rates in the country. All these issues that we should be addressing, we're not addressing, while $20 billion sits in a bank account.
Was that because the folks who are most affected by this don't live in the districts where those folks are in control?
I think that it is because we have a government, we have state leaders, Republican state leaders in particular, that are more focused on special interests and corporations than they are focused on working families. And when I say working families, they are Black people, they're white people, they're Latinos, they're Asian. Working families in this state receive the short end of the stick more often than not. And that needs to change.
So the image of being a great place to do business is for big business.
Big business.
And
Big
yes, and that the citizen, oh Lord, I understand. That's interesting. So how do you keep from getting discouraged being in the minority and not being able to move any of this stuff forward that you need to move?
Well, look, sometimes it's incremental progress. You have to take the little small wins. And when you were able to stop or change a bad bill and make it less bad than it was when it was first introduced, that's a small victory. But I'm also hopeful that as a state, we continue to make the progress we've been making in our politics. And I do believe that in 26, we're going to see a change in this state. I do believe that as we look forward, as people start to wake up to the fact that our state government is not providing us with the services that it should and with the support and the resources that it should, that the government will change. So for me, it's about making sure that we are proposing the policies that people can see a future and a vision where they have more money in their pockets and they can grow their wealth so that when we do come into power, we'll hit the ground running.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, you guys have a oversight function as senators, correct, and state house reps. My question to you is, and you may not have heard anything about this, I'm not sure, but when the governor was running the last time before he actually got elected, State Representative Roger Bruce had introduced the bill to create a supply diversity business program. And the bill wound up getting amended, is the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
And the Republican majority took over the bill, passed it in both houses. It went to the governor, but before it passed, he hired someone from Georgia Tech, their Minority Business Development Agency, to actually begin the program during the campaign.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if that was window dressing or what the effect has been, but have you heard anything about that program? And do you think it's going to be affected by the national push to get rid of anything that resembles DEI?
Yeah, and I can't tell you the specifics about the program, but I know about the program. I know that the state has made some progress in its supplier program and how many um, black folks and people of color are getting contracts. But I will tell you that it's still scraps. It's not representative of our community. Um, Black people are a significant part of this state. When you look at people of color generally, Black, Latino, Asian, we make up the majority of the state now. We're more than 50%. And I can tell you that we are not getting 50% of the contracts. And it doesn't always mean that we should get the same percentage of
Population,
our
right, 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 right,
population.
right.
But if we're 50% of the population and Black owned businesses and Latino owned businesses are only getting about 15% of the contracts, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to make sure moving forward that we laser focus on small businesses. And
Right.
that's why I think that we should be doing more around entrepreneurship and small businesses. Because the state should be leaning on small businesses and should also be supporting those small businesses. And I think that if we expanded and focused on small businesses, Black businesses and Latino businesses would be included in that. Um, I know that there's a big concern at the national level with DEI and the president getting rid and trying to eliminate any um consideration of race. Uh, but what I would say is in Georgia, uh, you could find the highest quality uh, vendor out there. Make sure they're a small business, and I can guarantee you, will if it's done fairly, we would be in the mix if it's done fairly. But
Right.
you need to have state leadership who's willing to put a fair system in place to ensure everybody who is qualified in this state gets that opportunity. And we haven't necessarily had that in the past.
Well, I appreciate your time. In my closing questions, I'm gonna turn it over to my brother Rodney Butler. What are the chances of there being a change in the majority in 26 or 28?
I think there's a good chance, but it's going to take changing some of the things we've done in the recent past. Um, it's going to take making sure that we're talking to uh, kitchen tables, speaking to kitchen table issues, that we're talking about economic issues, I think that we're going to have to be laser focused on that, because if we are, we're going to win. Democrats win. Our policies win when you actually talk to people about them. Where people get all iffy is when we start talking about social issues. When we start talking about those divisive issues, which is why Republicans try to distract us by always talking about those social issues. What we as Democrats should be doing is saying, no, I'm laser focused on saving people money and helping them grow their wealth. And if we focus on that, then I think we can win in 26. I think we can win in 28. And you do that with the messaging, but also the organizing. We have to go back to running grassroots organizations that and campaigns that are focused all across the state, not just in Metro Atlanta. We're only about 60% of the electorate in Atlanta. The rest of the state is a big chunk, and we need to be organizing down to Columbus, all the way down to Thomasville, over to Valdosta, up through Brunswick and Savannah and Augusta. We should be organizing all across the state, because we can't win statewide, and we can't win the legislature without closing the gap that we see in rural Georgia. So,
Gotcha.
Rodney, for me, it's about messaging and it's about organizing.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Rodney, you want to close it out?
Well, Rodney, you pretty much hit every single thing that we wanted to hit. So that is great. But I'm glad that you do, because I get to kind of finish it up the way a lot of times that I like to finish it up, as far as our special guest, and Senator Esteves is a special guest. So first of all, I love what you said about when Democrats, when Democrats talk about their policies, they win. And I am so glad that you are on this platform. I think that Democrats need to, every single chance they get, and I know Rodney will have you back. I know you'll be back. Every single chance we get, we need to talk to the people. I hope that is one lesson that the Democrats actually learned from the Republicans during this past presidential election cycle. Go everywhere, be everywhere, talk to the people all the time, every single time. Local radio, these podcasts are all over the place. People that have networks and everything that has some of the most successful shows out there. Guess what? Those shows have podcasts. So it's like, what? Why do you need a podcast? Well, we are definitely glad that you are here, Senator Esteves, and you know what? I hope that your colleagues understand the importance of talking, to the local people. So I really appreciate that. But before I ask you, I guess it's a request. I don't really have a question, because, like I said, Rodney Little's covered it. But before I get to my request, is we need more elected politicians like yourself. And what I mean by that is, if people listen to what you had to say tonight, you are in every single facet, every single area that we as a country need to concentrate on. You're the parent of a young child. You came up, on the south side of Columbus. You are a small business owner. You are a homeowner, right? So every single part we need, and you live in your community. Yeah, they redistrict, which is going to be my request. They drew the lines, because, like I said, they're not, they don't, Republicans don't want their electorate to choose them. They want to choose their electorate. But so you don't have any choice about, pretty much about, the district that you're in,
Right.
how they drew it. But with that being said, you are in the district. You are the people.
Right.
Every single thing, and I'm going to say it again, every single issue you talked about, every single one of those issues affect you personally and professionally. They affect you. So I appreciate that. Now, my request is simply this. You're in a new district. District is 35, right? Yeah, 35. Let the people know, let the listeners know what that district encompasses, as far as the locations and that kind of thing. So as they listen to this podcast, they know that, oh, okay, I kind of fall in Senator Esteves' district. So let them know what District 35 is geographically and all that.
Yeah, so on the north side, it goes along Bolton Road and Marietta Boulevard in the city of Atlanta. And then it goes down 285, Center Hill, Collier Heights area, represent that, represent Adamsville outside the perimeter. I also represent Vinings and Smyrna outside the perimeter with a little small piece of Mapleton. Now, if you go along 285 down through Mays High School, out right south of Collier Heights, uh, Adamsville, Mays, on down Cascade and Camp Creek, Westlake High School, all the way to the north side of the city of South Fulton. So all of that is outside of 285. So if you were along the west side of Atlanta, along 285, there's a good chance that I represent you. And here's the other thing, Rodney, is that we don't have to have these gerrymandered districts that are shaped like strips of bacon and have weird shapes. There are many states that have independent committees that draw it so that it's drawn fairly.
Exactly.
And what we need to be doing is making sure that our elected officials commit to drawing fair maps independently of the politics. And here's the thing, Democrats should commit to it, and y'all need to hold us accountable so that when we do get into power, that we don't have amnesia and then all of a sudden forget that we committed to fair maps, because it really, whether it's democratically controlled or Republican controlled, it's really about fairness and about every person having the opportunity to elect someone who best reflects their viewpoint. And the way the maps are drawn out now, like you said, it's more we selecting the electorate versus the electorate selecting us.
Yep.
Thank you for that, sir.
Thank
I
you,
definitely
Senator.
appreciate it.
We really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Anytime, and I look forward to being back. And Rodney Butler, I completely agree. Democrats made a mistake by not tapping into going everywhere, talking to everyone, making sure that we are visible, and that we have real conversations like this.
Real conversations, exactly.
I think that, especially when you think about Black men being blamed for all kinds of things, it's like, what are we talking about? One, Black men voted for Democrats at high numbers. Barely you saw a drop in those numbers. And two, let's stop talking about Black men like they're dramatically different. At the end of the day, we want to be empowered to work, to put food on our table, to put a roof over our heads, and make sure that our kids have better opportunities than we had. I mean, that's really what I mean.
The American dream.
The American dream.
That's it.
So let's talk to them about the American dream.
Yep.
Well, look, I tell you what, Senator
like it.
Esteves, we look forward to having you back, and like I said, we hope that elected officials like yourself in the state lead the way into coming and not talking to, as we talk about Black men, not talking to Black men and Black people 2 or 3 days before it's election time and stuff like that. So this particular podcast of the Black Man's Roundtable franchise is the one that's really dedicated to our local politicians. The other two kind of focuses on different things. Not to say that we don't have politicians on as well, but Rodney is well connected, especially in Atlanta. I'm very well connected in Douglasville and the other west part of But we're gonna have people on. But look, at the end of the day, if you don't come, just please don't come trying to talk to us when it's time for it to be elected, because we're not going to fall into that. We don't want to fall into that. But just as we also plan to, like you said, Senator Esteves, hold those elected officials accountable. Ask them the tough questions, once they're in office. So look, we really, really appreciate it. You answered every single thing just superbly, and I am just glad that you are definitely an elected official of the people, by the people. And like I said, every cause that you talked about is very important to 98% of Americans, but you also are affected by those policies personally and professionally. So we appreciate you, sir.
And
Appreciate y'all.
extend to your family and your lovely wife a thank you for permitting you to be a public servant.
Always.
Because I know what it's like, bro. And God bless your mother, man.
I appreciate y'all. And thank you
All
so
right.
much for having me.
Yes, sir.
And y'all have a great night.
All
Peace,
right, you
brother.
too, sir.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, he doesn't disappoint. He
No,
did not
no.
disappoint.
And like I said, every single cause, man, of the important causes, and that's what we need,
Yes.
right? And we need for our elected officials, man, to
Yep.
to really be, affected by these policies, just as
Yes.
well as the everyday person. But now we having a lot of politicians at the not just nationally, but
Right.
also at the state level, especially at the state level, not so much at the local level, who are not affected by these policies
Right.
personally and professionally. So I am glad to see when we have local elected officials like Senator Esteves, on to because he's this stuff hits him in the pocket just like it does everybody else. So. But
Yes,
great,
sir.
great, great interview, man. I know we have a whole spotlight, I think, tonight.
Oh man, local, 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 as you said, Brother Rodney. I've been getting a lot of calls and a lot of comments on public media, public social media about the city of South Fulton mayor and the issues that he's been going through recently. Former city councilman from the fifth council district in the city of South Fulton, and served as the second, has been serving as the second mayor of the young city, going into its ninth year. Um, I wanted to tackle it from this perspective. I don't think a lot of people understand how the charter is written and what the mayor's responsibilities and or authorities are.
Okay.
And are the voters aware and holding that mayor and the city manager and the council members accountable? So I wanted to go over a little bit of that so we could clear the air, because I think there's a lot of confusion. In the city of South Fulton, the charter states that the mayor shall be a part-time chief executive of city government and a member and presiding officer of the city council. Although he doesn't get to vote unless there's a tie, and if there's a veto, if he gets a veto overridden, he cannot vote on sustaining that in terms of his voting. The mayor shall be responsible for the enforcement of laws, rules, regulations, ordinance, and franchises in the city. I didn't know that, and I was involved in writing this. And looking back upon, I was like, oh, that's right. The mayor may conduct inquiries and investigations into the conduct of the affairs and shall have such powers and duties as specified in the charter or may be provided by ordinance consistent with the charter. That's a mouthful.
Hmm.
So if we're going to hold an elected official accountable, we need to know what their authority and responsibilities are. A couple of the key components: they appoint city council committees. I don't know exists any city council committees in the 8 years. They appoint the committee chairpersons, vice chairpersons, and appoint council members to those committees to oversee and report on the functions of various departments of the city, subject to confirmation by the city council. That's oversight. I haven't seen any of that. It requires the mayor requires the city manager to meet with him or her at a time and place designated for consultation and advice upon the affairs of the city. That means the mayor is supposed to have a good working relationship with the city manager and the city council in order to conduct these duties.
Hmm.
If there's not a good working relationship, it's impossible to do his or her job as mayor. Impossible. And I'm just focusing on the mayor's responsibilities, if you will. The city manager's authority, excuse me, the mayor's responsibility is to nominate the city manager, city attorney, and chief judge of municipal courts as provided by the charter and general state law. So the council confirms, but the mayor gets to appoint or recommend or nominate these people to these positions. So as we look at the scuttlebutt about his P card and the traveling and all of that,
Right.
I guess the question is, what did he do wrong outside of his functions as a mayor under the charter? What did he violate under the charter? What policy did the city manager or the council members have in place that he violated relative to that? And he's basically the face of the city. Whoever the mayor is basically the face of the city. And from that standpoint, if they're promoting the city in some way, then I can understand that. But if there's no dialogue, there's no meetings with the city manager, no coordination with the city council on what you as the mayor want to do, then I can see why this blew up, as no one knew what was going on until it happened. So I think a major part of this problem has to do with the relationship and the way whoever the mayor is conducts him or herself as it relates to the duties under the charter, which are very important. I thought it was just ceremonial. I didn't realize it was this important. I haven't looked at this in a while. I remember when we worked on putting it together, about 10, 12 years ago. But I had to look at it again, bro, Rodney, to find out. What are your thoughts?
Well, to me, it seemed I as we chose the hot or the whole spotlight for today, and I definitely, kind of lean toward this particular subject, is because it appears to me that the mayor of South Fulton has been getting just drugged on local mediums, television, print, and I just know a lot of times when that happens, especially for people that look like you and me, I know a lot of times there's just something else afoot. Now, I understand that the city of South Fulton, everybody say, well, look, the city council, everybody look like us in South Fulton, but that doesn't mean that other people are not culturally conditioned to go after you, versus if the person did not look like us. We
Right.
know that kind of thing happens in our community all the time because of culturally conditioning and all that stuff that you and I,
Correct.
talk about sometimes. But I just wanted for, at least on this platform, for the mayor to get the truth into or at least as Rodney Littles see it. I know how deeply involved you are, into the governance and the political landscape of South Fulton. So so as far as what I think, Rodney, I really don't think anything other than just wanting to hear what you had to say, and I'm
Okay.
hearing it at the same time because I called you on the phone and I told you, hey man,
Yes.
you got to tell me, I got to talk to you about what's happening in South Fulton with
Right.
the mayor. But you
Right.
know what? I said, you know what? I think I want to hear this from Rodney when everybody else is hearing it. So I'm just hearing, it from you, just like everybody else, about what's really going on, what's really happening in South Fulton. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it can be viewed as a dereliction of duty, not fully understanding the role, and most importantly, politics is about relationships. Rodney, you know that.
Yep.
It's about relationships.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't have the kind of relationship where you can deal with controversy in a calm, collective manner to try to solve the problem, then you have chaos, you have conflict, you have the personality issues that we see going on. And it hurts me because I worked hard along with a lot of other people to form the city. And I think that the current mayor has the talent and the ability. I just don't know why he hasn't applied it in the way that's expected of a mayor of a new city. That's my disappointment. I think the council is trying to hold him accountable, and I understand that too. But we've got to get past this. We've got to figure out a way to get to the people's business. And I just want to say in closing on this, if folks read the annual report from the city manager, Mr. Subadan, I took time to read it before we did this segment. And you wouldn't know how well we're doing by the antics and the media coverage that we get because people have conflicts. The city's doing great. We're doing a fantastic job in crime, in development. The city has been acquiring land. They've acquired almost 400 acres of land to put public facilities up. They said it's spending $17 million to improve parks. They just renovated the whole pool in the park. I mean, it's fantastic what's been happening. We're financially sound, and the city's doing great. It doesn't appear that way because of the conflicts we see in the media. That's the message I wanted to get across.
Yes, and we know why the media is focusing on this internal or this conflict that is going on between the mayor and the council. Just that happens in so many places in America, that it's not even funny. But we know why the media is concentrating on South Fulton with that, with the negative stuff. So I think. But anyway, Rodney, look, your lights went out and said, "Hey, y'all, close it out."
Yeah,
So
yeah. It says it's time to go to bed.
yeah, so look, your light said, "Hey, that's the end of this thing." So anyway, Rodney, once again, good show, man. Go ahead on and close it out for us, brother, because your lights
Yes,
are ready
sir.
to go. Lights out.
We can catch the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney on the second Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. And you can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll keep rounding them up until next time. Thank you for being with us tonight. Have a good day, Rodney.
You too, brother. Peace, Rodney.
All right, now.
Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.